So first of all, thank you everyone for joining this week's 15-minute Feature Friday. This week we're actually going to be going over the Smart Client Matrix. Now, if you guys aren't familiar with Matrix, it's actually a bit of an older product. And actually, to quote some pretty old documentation on Matrix, basically it said the Milestone XProtect Matrix is an integrated product allowing distributed video viewing of video from any camera on any monitor on a network operating with selected Milestone XProtect surveillance systems. And now you may read that and you might think, wait, that sounds a lot like SmartWall. And you'd pretty much be right. So what's the difference? Is there ever a reason to use Matrix over SmartWall? Well, the answer is yes, but really only in a very few specific cases. So first of all, let's go over what's SmartWall is, just for review for anybody on the call that may not be familiar with it. But basically, SmartWall has a number of different uses, and it's actually something that's only included it's included natively in the XProtect corporate product, and it's available as an add-on for the XProtect expert product. And basically, the way that you can use it is that you can go ahead and manage a video wall, and it can go anywhere from a single channel all the way up to, a single monitor up to something like this on the screen, where you have a 2x2 with 4 monitors, 3x3, 6x6. Doesn't really matter. It's pretty flexible. And the rule configuration is pretty flexible too. You can go ahead and use rules and events to go ahead and trigger a preset, which will automatically show a certain view based off of that's related to a specific event. And then also either bring in cameras from metadata or specific cameras that you specify. Then you go ahead and set the SmartWall to show also just specific cameras using an existing view, and just kind of put as many of the cameras that are related to the rule within that specific view. And then another use is that you can go ahead and set the SmartWall monitor to show text, which is also a big differentiator that Matrix can't do. Another thing you can do besides rules and events is that you can drag and drop different views and other elements into SmartWall. For instance, you can drag and drop text, like just from a text file, which actually it supports like an RTF formatting as well. And then you can drag and drop images, maps, HTML pages, carousels, hotspot, etc. Now, for Matrix, one very nice reason why you might want to use it over SmartWall is that it's actually available in all E code and C code products except for XProtect Essential. And the difference of how it works is, rather than actually dedicating an entire monitor to like a Matrix view, you can actually place it inside a view. So what you can see over here on the image on the right, I've got a 1+5 view, and it's just a regular view, and I just happen to have a single Matrix window basically in one of those. So could be advantageous, especially if you just have an operator that has a single monitor, or maybe there's a specific use case that you want to go ahead and trigger just a specific channel in a view to go ahead and show a specific camera based off of a rule or an event. The rule configuration is different than the SmartWall. It's very basic. There's just one type of rule that you can do rather than 3 like the SmartWall can do. And basically the way it works is that triggering a rule to send video to a matrix will send the relevant cameras to quote unquote window 1, which will make more sense once I demo this. And then when another camera is sent to the matrix, the camera in window 1 will actually go ahead and move out of there and go over to window 2 if that's available. And the camera that's currently in Windows 2 will move to Windows 3, etc., while that new event places the camera that was just triggered into Window 1. So it has a bit of a different behavior than SmartWall, which I'll demo in just a second as well. So let's actually just jump right into that. Okay. Now, first off, before I actually show how these behave, let me go ahead and go over the actual configuration. Now, the configuration of an actual matrix is pretty simple. Basically, you'll find it over here in the management client. If you go under client, it'll be the last option, matrix. And here I have 2 matrices, I should say matrices, already configured. I have matrix station A and matrix station B. I'll create a third one just to kind of show you how that process goes. And basically, you just have to specify a name. So I'm just going to call this demo matrix. Description, I'm just going to put test. And here is where you'll go ahead and put in the address. You can specify a local host, but you can also specify a specific IP address, and I believe host name. I technically haven't tried that, but I would imagine you'd be able to use host name as well. And you'll also want to specify the port. Now, by default, it does 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but I already have two matrices set up. One is on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. One's on 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. So let's go and put this on 1, 2, 3, 4, 7. And next, you have to put a password. Now, this doesn't need to match like admin credentials or anything like that on your system. It just basically has to be a password that you're going to specify. That when you're setting this up within a client for review, you're also going to have to specify the same thing as well. Next thing you have to do is type. You have the smart client / remote client. Now, that's pretty much what you're going to want to be using. Matrix Monitor is kind of an older application that I don't. I was talking with Jared and a couple of the other guys the other day about it, or yesterday, and they. I don't think it's been updated in like 5 years, so I don't know if it works, and I couldn't find it anywhere available for download on our site. So most of the time, you're probably just going to want to use this anyways, because you probably want the operator to view it within the smart client rather than using a standalone older client. And that's pretty much it. So it's pretty straightforward to set up the actual matrix. Now, before we go to the smart client side to do that configuration, let me just go over how you would basically trigger this. Now, first of all, I'm going to go ahead and trigger a user-defined event. So, or sorry, I'm going to go ahead and create a user-defined event. So let's go ahead and call this matrix test. And now I'm going to go ahead and create a rule based off of that user-defined event. So I will also call this matrix test rule. And for the action, here you'll see the smart wall rules that I was referring to before. But if you scroll down a bit, here's the matrix rule. So basically right here, I'm just going to go ahead and put demo matrix. And then I'll go ahead and select a device to go ahead and view based off of this rule. And for this, I'll go ahead and use my lobby simulated camera. And I'll have finished. So that's one example. Obviously, for this, I was using a user-defined event to trigger a matrix, but just like you would for any type of rule, you can use any number of different things, such as access control events, analytics, or anything like that to trigger cameras to the matrix. All right, so let's go ahead and jump in the smart client. Since I created a new rule and event, let's reload the configuration. And let's go ahead and create a new matrix view. So let's go ahead and create a 2x2. Call this matrix demo. Now let's drag and drop matrix over here. So now the first thing you want to do is drag and drop it to a window. I'm going to choose the top left one. And once you do that, you'll have to come down here to where it says connection settings. And here's where you will actually specify the port. So for that one, we did it on 1, 2, 3, 4, 7. And then we'll do the password. So for this, I'll just go ahead and specify the password that we set up. And now we have a single matrix window set up. Now, once you've configured this, you can actually go ahead and drag and drop the matrix element again into a number of different channels. And as I do that, you'll see that the name will actually update over the overlay. And basically it says matrix window 1, matrix window 2, matrix window 3, matrix window 4. So it's pretty straightforward. It's nice that you don't have to necessarily configure the windows themselves. Although if you do need to change those up, you can right down here. And if I exit setup mode, we should now be able to go ahead and test this and see this actually in action. So if I hit matrix test, you'll go ahead and see this camera will automatically go ahead and populate over here to the top left like we had configured. Now let's talk a little bit about those differences I had mentioned. So I'm actually going to switch over to a different view. So I'm going to go to Matrix Station A, and I'm going to use a different scenario that I had configured before. And basically, that's to go ahead and actually have an access control event send over a camera to an operator's view based on that event. So over here, we have Matrix Entrance 1 test and Matrix Entrance 2 test. So if I trigger this Matrix Entrance 1 test event, basically it'll simulate a ruler event activation of an access control related event, such as access denied, door forced open, and that'll go ahead and automatically populate over here to Matrix Window 1. Now, if that operator is trying to respond to that, and let's say I have another specific event that I want to go ahead and just send that specific camera to the matrix. If I hit Matrix Entrance 2 test, now it's doing another access related event, and it's sending it over to Matrix Window 1, and then it just goes ahead and moves the camera over to the next window. So if I keep activating these back and forth, you'll see that behavior kind of continue, where it's just going again from Matrix 1 Window 1 to Window 2, Window 2 to Window 3, and Window 3 to Window 4. Now, I also configured a similar rule within SmartWall. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Actually, I should go over here. So I created a rule similar to that, and you'll see that the camera is already here in Entrance 1. Now, I'm going to go ahead and trigger a rule. So if I had triggered this, it would go ahead and send this door over to this specific channel. Because the rule is basically to go ahead and specify to use the current view and then populate camera starting in a certain position. Now, if I go ahead and try to populate SmartWall Entrance 2, you'll see that rather than having that same behavior where it's going ahead and moving over to the left or to the right, it's actually overriding that specific camera in that specific channel. So it's a bit of a different behavior, and it's not necessarily a bad way to design it, but it may not meet the specific needs of your operator. So, there's ways around this. You can change a different position that camera could go ahead and populate to, but it's not a very dynamic way of doing that. While the matrix is very straightforward, it's kind of first in, first out, and it goes from one window all the way to the next. And let me actually go ahead and just pull up this rule just so that you can see how that SmartWall side looks as well. So this is the example of the rule that I created. Basically, it was taking that SmartWall I created, monitor 1. It's using the layout that is already used, and it's showing entrance 1 starting in position 1. And then this one does much the same thing, but it's entrance 2. And again, I could put this to a dedicated position, but if, say, you wanted to just do a smaller view and monitor, let's say, 20 doors, sometimes, especially if you have a lot of activity all at once, it might kind of just overwrite the specific views, which is kind of similar to a use case that I had down here in California recently. All right, so just to kind of wrap it up in summary, why would you use Matrix? One is that the operator only has a single monitor, and you want them to be able to operate within specific views. Again, you could just go ahead and put that Matrix window in a specific view. There may be a need to have a specific window or channel in a view to change on a specific event. So again, it's kind of similar to one, but there's a couple of use cases where that might make sense. It may be desirable to have cameras populate sequentially rather than have the previous cameras overwritten. That kind of relates just to the differences between the SmartWall and Matrix behavior that I went over. And then the last reason would be that the customer does not have SmartWall because they're not running corporate or expert with the add-in, and you want to achieve similar functionality. Matrix could be a good option for that. Oh, I forgot to put the words thank you on that slide. But yeah, that actually wraps it up. So I saw that there were a couple of questions and comments in the chat. Oh, yeah, thanks for that, Mike. Yeah, so the address field that you enter within the actual management client, for the address, it's not related to the server, it's the actual smart client address. I happen to be on the same VM, so localhost worked for this specific case. couple other comments. Okay, looks like that one was answered. Can you send a camera view from one operator to another using Matrix? Yeah, okay, that's related to basically what Hova was saying.
Andrew, if you don't mind, I want to speak for just 2 seconds.
Go for it.
There's some limitations to Matrix that I think we should be aware of. So, Brad, to your question a bit, the answer is yes. Actually, you can go into the smart client and you can actually choose to send a specific view you're looking at to a specific matrix. And I don't think you covered that, Andrew, but if you did, I'm sorry I missed it. But if you go to the more menu, like on a camera, you should be able to see send to. You can send the matrix. I wonder why it's not popping up there. Oh, yeah, right there, matrix. No, let's make sure demo. Anyways, some of the limitations is you're not actually sending to a specific logged on user. So you're not sending it to Bob or Joe. You're sending it to the IP address or the host name of the workstation they log on to. So if Joe uses the same workstation every single day, that works great. However, if Joe moves around, it doesn't, because it won't follow Joe. Additionally, if the smart client's not open, there's no way to know if the user got that video or didn't get that video. So there's no kind of redundancy built in through the service channel like there is with SmartVault. So this actually would work very well for like a static monitor you have up on the wall or maybe a public display, but wouldn't necessarily be amazing for sending someone video, but it is possible.
Okay, thanks, Stephen and Andrew, for that all that information, because there's some banking that we're getting into now, and even in some retail, managers like to have a couple of views, but not necessarily have the smart client always operable and logged in. So it looks like this might be a way to do that. And you said public view, so that would encompass all of that.
Well, this is a component of the smart client, so they do have to have a smart client and be logged in order for this to be effectively there to receive the video stream.
But they could run that in the background, and then someone else could really manage what views they have.
Yeah, it can't run in the background. It won't pop up. It basically has to be a view that is already created, and the view already has to be open in order for it to catch those video streams.
Okay, all right.
Now, the only caveat there is you talked about the standalone alarm matrix. That may or may not be supported anymore. Technically, we don't support it, but it still works. It's super old. You can still get it on our website. You just have to go to like Enterprise 6.5 and go to downloads, and it'll show up. That one does run in the tray, and it does pop up, but it's super limited. It's single camera or 4 camera only. And again, it's so old that if they had any issues with it, support wouldn't even talk to them about it.
Okay.
And you're referring to Matrix Monitor, not Alarm Matrix.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, we have. Yeah, exactly.
I just wanted to make that clear.
Yeah, thank you. We've got all these products with the same names, just switch words around.
SmartWall could work for that too, because remember, you have to have it on a bank of wall-mounted monitors. It can be used as a single monitor if you want to, and have it dynamically change stuff for your banking application.
Well, or let me get the word right, the alarm matrix. That one's great. If they can create an alarm based on these different criteria, motion or whatever, a button, as long as it's tied to an alarm, then the alarm matrix is a great solution for that.
All right. Any other questions? And thanks for that, Stephen, Justin. Yeah, Stephen, I forgot about that send to matrix functionality, but yeah, that's pretty useful as well. And thanks, Justin. I didn't know that the matrix monitor was actually still available on the site.
Good job. I think you did a good job covering it.
You still there, Andrew?
Yep, I was talking and I was totally muted. Yeah, I was just saying thank you guys. Really appreciate you taking the time this week. As always, if you have any suggestions that you want to go ahead and give towards any different topics that you want covered, feel free to either email us at presalesus@milestone.us, or I don't know, you guys, you can hit us up on Workplace in the group as well.
Thanks, Andrew. Great topic.